Well, hello, hello, hello. If you've landed here, you've landed on Let's Talk News. My name is Leticia Remauro. I'm your host. I hope you landed here intentionally, but if you didn't, stay a while and drop a comment, and we'll see them live on screen. As we can see with Kevin Wall from the other side of the world, but the same side of the issues, is with us now. Yeah, so here's where you're going to find a group of people who are um, very thoughtful and considerate in what they talk about. And what we generally talk about is how the news covers the stories that we are hearing in the cycle. As you may know, not all news stations cover things equally, and not all of them cover things without an editorial spin. So, we here at Let's Talk News break that down, and I thank you for being with us. I wanted, before I start the show, there's a photo going around of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson asking Justice Clarence Thomas who gerrymander is or was when it comes to these terms of gerrymandering districts. And that was with respect to the Louisiana case that they decided yesterday it was. Anyway, I thought that I would let you know that the term originally written as Jerry and then dash Mander first was used on March 26, 1812 in the Boston Gazette, a reaction to the redrawing of Massachusetts state senate election districts under Governor Elbridge Gerry. Though the redistricting was done at the behest of his Democrat Party, it was Gerry who signed the bill in 1812. As a result, he received the dubious honor of attribution along with its negative connotation. So, what happened was is that the way the districts were drawn, it resembled a salamander, and so they called it a gerrymander, and that term stuck. And we use that term today, gerrymandering, and that means to draw districts to your advantage. And oh my goodness, it was a Democrat that started the whole thing. Could you imagine? Hi, Christy. Karen, I'm sorry. Hi, Karen. Good to have you. And hi, Kevin Young. Good to have you. Hi, Francine. Good to have you. So tonight we're going to discuss kind of the Dem meltdowns that are taking place, and some Republican meltdowns too, by the way. But from Secretary Hegseth going before Congress yesterday to ask for money for our troops in our Iran conflict, to Obama's reaction to the SCOTUS decision on Louisiana, and the fact that they stated you cannot consider race when you're drawing districts. And also the Chancellor, German Chancellor Merz, um, basically saying that America is being humiliated by Iran. I thought that we should talk about all that is going on in the world, and the fact that we need to start really standing our ground and showing who we are and what it is to deal with us in America. Hello, Lucille. Hello, Andrew. So let's start it off with Obama's reaction. He posted on X yesterday after the SCOTUS decision. And needless to say that he wasn't too happy. Also, Hakeem Jeffries, and I should have clipped that and I forgot, but he called the Supreme Court illegitimate. Illegitimate. He called the Supreme Court illegitimate. And if I can find that, I'll show it to you. So Obama, Let's see. Today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the Voting Rights Act, freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts to systematically dilute and weaken the voting power of racial minorities, so long as they do it under the guise of partisanship rather than explicit racial bias. And it serves as just one more example of how a majority of the current court seems intent on abandoning its vital role in ensuring equal participation in our democracy and protecting the rights of minority groups against majority overreach. The good news is that such setbacks can be overcome, but that will only happen if citizens across the country who cherish our democratic ideals continue to mobilize and vote in record numbers, not just in upcoming midterms or in high profile races, but in every election and every level. That sounds like a rant, and it also is incorrect. The Supreme Court's job is not to assure racial equality or to ensure that that people of different races all get to pick somebody who looks like them to represent them in Congress. The Supreme Court's job is one thing and one thing only: to interpret the Constitution and to see if the laws that are being made actually align with the Constitution or go against the Constitution. And if they go against the Constitution, their job is to overturn them. But once again, I mean, Obama's talking about overreach. What Obama's asking the Supreme Court to do is to be a legislator, is to legislate from the bench. And that's not what this is about. And that's not what the Constitution says. And that's not what the Declaration of Independence says. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing. There's 3 different branches of government. And the Supreme Court is to interpret the Constitution as it applies to the laws that are being made by not only Congress, but all of the states. And to ensure that anyone in power governmentally is not going against the Constitution in what they are doing. So I think that we have seen in recent years a lot of judges who have been legislating from the bench. But the Supreme Court can't take up every single case. I mean, if, Trump appeals the some of his cases all the way to the Supreme Court, which he's been doing most of the time, the Supreme Court doesn't have to take every single case, but it's important that they do when it is, we're seeing states follow each other in doing the wrong thing. And I'm just waiting for somebody to bring a case against sanctuary cities and states. And that might be happening right now because there are lawsuits from the Angel families who lost loved ones to illegal migrant crime. And we might actually see whether or not sanctuary cities and states are going to be upheld by the Constitution. But anyway, I just thought I'd share with you that Obama meltdown. It's just crazy that he's saying that the Supreme Court, as a former president, somebody who sat in the White House, who should know better, believes that it is the Supreme Court's job to ensure racial equality. No, their job is to make sure that everybody can vote, because that's what the case was about. They can't just willy-nilly decide, okay, we're going to, apply racial equality. Okay, so who should we talk about first? You guys are quiet tonight. I don't know. And I can see that we're sluggish in the internet, and I wonder what that's all about. I wonder if it's because I'm just ranting on and on, or if we have a bad connection. I hope it's not either, honestly. All right, let's listen to Secretary of State Hegseth.
President Trump, unlike other presidents, has had the courage to ensure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, and he's ironclad in that. We had the best negotiator in the world driving that deal. The biggest challenge, the biggest adversary we face at this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans 2 months in, I remind you, 2 months in to a conflict. Lest I remind you, and my generation understands how long we were in Iraq, how long we were in Afghanistan, how long we were in Vietnam. 2 months in, on an existential fight for the safety of the American people, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. We are proud of this undertaking. I am proud that President Trump has had the courage to do it, and I look forward to sharing more about what our troops have accomplished. We took every effort possible at the commencement of this campaign to ensure the defense of our troops, to include moving them off of known bases to places that were not known, and we had
understood, Secretary,
and then those were fortified with bunkers and other fortifications with theater air defenses. Was our concern that something could
I'm going to pause you there. I'm going to give you a chance.
Absolutely.
Secretary, I'm going to give you a chance.
You're disparaging me that I don't care.
I'm asking you whether you think they're liars or not. That's what I asked you.
You are disparaging me that I don't care about the passing of our troops.
Nope. I asked if you thought they're liars, Secretary.
That's disparaging and smearing in every way. Nobody cares more about the fate of our troops. Nobody cares about the health of our troops. Nobody wants to bring them all hope more than I do.
You know, these hearings are getting more and more tumultuous. I don't appreciate it when we are looking more for gotcha moments, for viral moments, than we are for information. And it seems like these hearings more and more are going for the gotcha moments rather than information. And that's really pissing me off. You know, what are we doing? When did it come to this? I don't know, but people don't want to hear the truth. Okay. Are you listening? Oh, good. I'm so glad, Kevin. Yeah, I'm not used to people listening to me. Usually people tune out. And the professor's with us. How are you, Professor? You know, so yeah, these gotcha moments are they're not serving anybody. And I almost want to go back to the days when this stuff wasn't televised, because then maybe we'd have more substance and we wouldn't be, looking for the clicks and likes so much. But anyway, Secretary Hegseth stood up for himself. I'm glad he did. But it's just amazing to me that Democrats can, without embarrassment, chastise the Secretary of Defense instead of applaud our members of the military for the work that they have done in Iran. I mean, it's crazy what we have been able to do already. I mean, capturing Maduro, which there was a bounty on his head forever, reduce the amount of drugs coming into the nation, reduce the amount of illegal migrants who wish us harm coming into the nation. Remember, Maduro let all those people out of jail, and not out of jail, but jail and also mental institutions to come here to kind of gum up the works of America. And today, for the first time in a very long time, a commercial air flight went to Venezuela because of the understanding that America has with the Venezuelan government now. We live in interesting times, but the most important thing is that while everybody around the world we're saying, oh, this one is a dictator, that one is a dictator, Trump is taking out the dictators, because you can't have democracy if dictators with lots of money are coming after you constantly and trying to undermine you. And that's what's happening. They're trying to take down Europe, and they're trying to take down America. And the unfortunate thing is the only one willing to stand up for both Europe and America is Donald Trump, but Europe doesn't appreciate it. Hello, Jeff. Good to have you. Stand by our military. It's the best in the world. It is indeed. And it pisses me off when they all go after the military. But speaking of Europe, listen to Chancellor Merz.
Die Amerikaner haben offensichtlich keine Strategie.
The Americans clearly have no strategy, and the problem with conflicts like this is always that you don't just have to go in, you also have to get out again. We saw that all too painfully in Afghanistan for 20 years. We saw it in Iraq.
Im Irak gesehen. Also diese Geschichte ist.
So this whole affair is, as I said, ill-considered, to say the least.
Ich erkenne im Augenblick nicht, welche.
At the moment, I cannot see what strategic exit the Americans are now opting for, especially as the Iranians are obviously negotiating very skillfully, or rather, very skillfully not negotiating, and letting the Americans travel to Islamabad only to leave again without any results. An entire nation is being humiliated by the Iranian state leadership, particularly through these so-called revolutionary guards.
Vor allem durch diese sogenannten Revolutionsgarden.
So he thinks we're being humiliated, and he also thinks that we don't have a plan. I don't know. I see the plan. The plan is you cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And so we're not going anywhere until we ensure that they don't have a nuclear weapon. So they're closing the Strait of Hormuz, and all of Europe is crying because they depended so much on the oil from there, even though it was coming from terrorists, because there is no moral center in Europe or anywhere anymore, it seems. It's all instantaneous gratification, except for the tyrannical country, the countries led by tyrannical leaders. They don't want instantaneous gratification. They don't care. And we can see it with Iran, right? As we're choking their economy, we're just destroying their economy. They don't care what happens to their people. China doesn't care what happens to their people. People like that don't care what happens to their people because they believe that there is a reward on the other side if they should die. They believe that they have to hang tough and that to capitulate would take away their manhood or something. But Merz, thinks we have no strategy. France doesn't, Italy doesn't. And what's interesting to me is that if any of them were military leaders, they'd see the strategy. But our biggest problem in reporting is that nobody understands the military anymore. Nobody read about Alexander the Great. Nobody, Mao. What's the other one? I can't remember his name. But there have been great military leaders throughout history. But these people don't seem to understand it because we don't want to talk about war because we're too nice. But war is part of power. It's just power. If you want a country, you have to be ready to go to war to defend it. Merz is upset that the U.S. left them behind. They didn't want to come. I believe much of Europe is socialist starting point of communism. I agree. We aren't NATO allies anymore. No, we're not. Because we have been funding NATO to the tune of $986 billion last year. And the top people, like Italy, I gave, 15. And I think that the closest one to us was the UK at 95. So that's scary. And also, well, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let this guy say it. let's see, when asked about NATO, what these big brains think.
If the US does leave, what would a NATO alliance without them look like and actually realistically be able to do?
Well, it would struggle in the short term because there are a number of enabling capabilities that the United States provides. Now, that doesn't mean to say that over time, European countries working collaboratively together can't backfill those capabilities, but it can't happen overnight and wouldn't happen overnight. And indeed, I would like to think that even Donald Trump would regard it as irresponsible if he was to effectively pull the plug in very short order on the United States' involvement with NATO. But again, it comes back to the wider point that we Europeans have got to step up to the plate, and we've got to put more resource into our collective security. Now, pick up Donald Trump's, I think, rather egregious point that we don't have a Navy. Well, we do have a Royal Navy, but rather like the Royal Air Force and the Army, we know that they've been serially underinvested in, really since the end of the Cold War, with successive peace dividends having been taken, and many of us who have been calling that out for quite some time, now regretfully seeing the risks coming to fruition and the paucity of our defence capability being exposed. So, we hear his rhetoric, we understand what he means. We don't want to take it too literally and get too angst about it, but I think a minimum strategic objective should be for the Europeans to ensure that the United States stays within NATO, accepting it will do less.
Accepting that it will do less. Let me tell you what it does, okay? In 2025, NATO defense spending is dominated by the US, $980 billion, followed by Germany at $93.7 billion, the UK at $90.5 billion, and France $66.5 billion. All 32 allies now meet the 2% GDP target, with Poland 4.4%, Lithuania 4%, and the US 3.49%, leading in spending as a percentage of GDP. Top spenders, the US constitute the largest share, followed by Germany, the UK, and France. Okay, we already said that. So that, I mean, look at the difference. 980 billion. So Germany gives 10% of what we do. So Germany, the UK, France, and Poland all together don't give as much as we give. So and the truth is that the war isn't over here; it's over there. It's to defend in Europe, not to defend in America. So that's crazy. Short term, I think for a long time. We gain nothing from NATO except permission to have military bases, which is important, but is it worth the cost of remaining in NATO? Is there anything else they do? Well, we didn't get permission to use military bases. That's the whole thing. So why would we say, and why do we have to be the responsible one? Well, the one reason why Trump has to be responsible, he can't be irresponsible with this, is because you don't want China or Russia to come in there guns a-blaring, or not that Venezuela could, but you know what I mean. You don't want any of our big enemies to get together and invade Europe, right? Because that would really suck. So we can't let that happen. We have to be smarter than that. Okay, we got 6 minutes left. All right, so you heard about Bernie Sanders, or did you hear about Bernie Sanders having this AI town hall with Chinese scientists yesterday? And needless to say, the administration was having a heart attack because we are in a race to try and outdo China with AI. We're lagging behind, actually, America. And, everything Trump is trying to do is to, get America on the fast track and to leave China behind. But I wanted to play, Sanders didn't seem to think that there was a problem. He thinks that we need to all get together. But I wanted to play some clips from last month's press conference that he had when he announced this. Not even invade necessarily, but befriend could also hurt us. Yeah, well, that's true. You're right. With respect to, if Russia or any of them take our place in NATO. I mean, listen, Russia and China are part of NATO. They're part of the UN. They just happen to be our enemies. They don't necessarily have to be everyone else's enemy. But when Putin invaded Ukraine, everybody looked to us to pay up. And as Trump rightly said, you're going to get hit before us. You guys got to pay up. So I don't know. If NATO is saved, it's going to be because Trump told them, to get their money and put it where their mouth is. But the truth is that all these European countries, they're not ready for war. They're just not. And China and Russia know it. Member of NATO or not NATO, members fight with each other regardless. Well, they do fight with each other, and you're right about that. But this is big. When you are the chief funder, when you give 90% of the money and weaponry for this supposed army, and then you say, I need to use the airfield base because I've got this conflict going on because I'm trying to save the world from a lunatic getting a nuclear missile, and they all go, no, we don't want to get involved. No. It exposed their hand. I mean, Trump really did expose who they were. And then you say, well, we've been given, all this money, all this time. What are we giving it for? Trump said today we are way ahead of China in AI when he signed EO for savings plan. Well, put it this way. We may be way ahead of them, but not for long. They have the ability to overtake us very quickly. We subsidize the world in too many ways. We do. We're ahead, but not really, because they have the ability. The problem with us in China, let me just explain it, and let me not take an hour to do it. It's the chips. Okay, the chips. We have the ability to make chips quickly. They have old kind of lethargic chips, but they have more advanced technology. They've been working on it longer. So if they got the chips that we have, then they'd be way ahead of us. They also have more of the minerals that are needed, and they also don't give a shit about raping the environment for energy, where we are restricted. So even though we're ahead of them in a lot of ways, a flip of the switch and they're ahead of us, and that's a problem. Let's see what this says. I don't trust the UN or NATO. Alger Hiss was a founder of the UN, and he was convicted of being a Soviet operative spy. Well, we know that, and we know also that they are really Muslim leaning. But then again, so's the Pope. So, I don't know what the fuck to think anymore. All right, so I just wanted to play this for you for Bernie, and I want you to hear. Bernie tells us why he thinks that we need to cozy up to China. He's really fearful of AI, and he's trying to get everybody else afraid of AI, so that China can get ahead. But we'll watch.
AI is already reshaping how we as human beings relate to each other. According to a recent poll by Common Sense Media, 72% of American teenagers say they have used AI for companionship, and more than half do so regularly. What does it mean for young people to form friendships with AI and become more and more lonely and isolated from other human beings. Everybody understands we have a major mental health crisis for our young people right now. I fear that AI could make it even worse. AI is undermining American democracy. The rise of deep fakes, where you have very convincing fake images. It happened to me. I don't know if it happened to you. All right. Where they had me selling some rebates or something like that. Looked very good. Almost convinced me, but it wasn't me. We're seeing fake videos, fake audios. What happens when a day before the election, somebody who looks like the candidate gets up and says something outrageous and people believe it? Good news here, and it's not widely known, is there are a number of Chinese scientists who share the same concern that American scientists are worried about. And that is, if we don't get a handle on AI, there are going to be enormous existential consequences. So I think in a sane world, what happens is the leadership of the United States sits down with the leadership in China and leadership around the world to work together so that we don't go over the edge and create a technology which could perhaps destroy humanity. But I would say there are Chinese scientists fairly high up in the government who share those concerns. We've got to immediately, with a sense of urgency, bring those people together.
Chinese scientists very high up in the government that share that urgency. Yeah, except for there is no individuality in the CCP. You do exactly what the government tells you. So if they have that concern, Bernie, it's not a real concern. We know you work for the CCP. We know that Neville Roy Singham is your master, and we know that he wants China ahead of America. So, well, Bernie followers don't know that. Let's Talk News followers know that. This is why we can't let China take Taiwan. Absolutely, because those chips are made in Taiwan. That's why Trump is bringing them here. We need to be able to protect this technology. I agree about the companionships. Not good. That's a function of bad parenting and COVID. Period. So, my grandson still does not watch television, doesn't fuck around with AI, doesn't spend hours and hours on his phone or his computer because he has other things to do. Life, baseball, football, life, companionship, friends. When you lock your kid in a room with technology and let that technology be the babysitter, then that's the kind of kid you're going to get. So, all right, everybody, it's Thursday. So that means I'm not going to be around tomorrow unless something really fun happens, but I doubt it. I'm going to be planting in the garden all weekend, but I will see you on Sunday. And I want to thank you for joining me. As you know, you keep me sane. And if you are here for the first time, try commenting next time and subscribe to the channel. Either, subscribe to Facebook or Rumble or YouTube. It's free to you, but it does a lot for me. And if you want your friends to watch, share the show. I will see you Thursday at 8 o'clock. I love chatting with you, and hopefully it'll be a quiet weekend. All right, let's talk news, everybody.